What's up guys, Tim here from Audio Tutor. Welcome to the third part of this songwriting mini-series. In this series we're talking about the process of writing a song from start to finish, and as an example we're using one of my songs, a song called Tropical Christmas. It was released in December 2017. If you haven't heard it, head on over to Spotify or iTunes or wherever you get your music. My name's Tim Luxter and the song is called Tropical Christmas. Have a listen so you know what we're talking about here. So far in this series, we've talked about the initial idea and the initial concept for the song. We've talked about the inspiration and purposeful influence, coming up with those first chords and the first lyrics, those initial ideas. Then we talked about writing the chorus, verse 1, and the bridge. We talked about adding virtual instruments and starting to build that arrangement. So now, what have we got left structurally in the song? We've got verse 1, we've got the bridge, and then we've got the chorus. And then in this song, we've got verse 2, then we've got the bridge, the chorus, and then the end. Well, actually, the chorus is repeated once, and then the end. So, if you look at what we've written already, we've only got one more thing to write, and that is verse 2. So let's dive right in. How did I go about writing verse 2?
Let me kiss you on the side of the moon. These nights I miss you, but I'll be with you soon. As we light up the sands with our hands in the blue, I'll be taking a step through the depths of the ocean with you.
So the first thing to celebrate is that we already have a tune. Verse 1. The same tune as verse 1. We'll be using it again for verse 2. Well, we can't completely copy verse 1, so the difference we've got to make is in the lyrics, and we may make a little change to the tune. We might add a little bit to that vocal melody, and we will be changing up that arrangement as well to keep the listener interested. So let's talk about lyrics first. The lyrics for verse 2 were, "Let me kiss you on our side of the moon. These nights I miss you, but I'll be with you soon. As we light up the sands with our hands in the blue, I'll be taking a step through the depths of the ocean with you." Okay, so the first thing you probably would have noticed there is that the first line was very similar to the first line of verse 1. "Let me kiss you" was the very first little phrase on both verses. This is a technique, a repetition technique that I love to use. Repeating something with a slight variation. It's an idea that has been used in music for centuries, all the way back with Bach and Beethoven used this same technique where you'd have a theme and then a variation on a theme. It's that same thing, and we do it today in pop music all the time. Many styles of music all the time, where we repeat something but we change it just a little bit to keep you interested. That's what we're doing here with the idea of verse 1 and verse 2. So that very first line was the same, "Let me kiss you," and then I changed it up, "on our side of the moon," instead of 2 times or more. The other thing I want to say about repetition is it's a great technique to prevent writer's block. I like to use techniques to prevent writer's block from happening, and one of those techniques I use is repetition. I also talked about the idea of using imagery. I talked about that in the last video, go watch it, but I talked about this idea of using a list of words that will help to propel you back onto that role of creativity. So the other technique I like to use is repetition. So starting verse 2, very easy for me, rather than thinking what's the first line going to be of verse 2, I just repeated the first bit of verse 1, and that got me on a roll to what was coming next. The other bit of repetition you may have noticed was in the very last line, talking about the depth of the ocean. That's a theme that comes up quite a lot in the song. Another variation technique I used in this is making a change in the rhyming pattern. So you may have noticed in the last 2 lines, instead of just rhyming at the end of the line, I rhyme in the middle of the line as well. "As we light up the sands with our hands in the blue, I'll be taking a step through the depths of the ocean with you." So there's a little change in the rhyming scheme there. Again, just another way to kind of have a little variation, so it is keeping the listener interested. It's a bit different from what you heard last time in verse 1. Now we're going to delve into variations that you can make in the arrangement, talking a bit more about mixing. So we're going to dive right now into the Tropical Christmas project in Logic and have a little look at the changes I made throughout verse 2, the things that were different in the arrangement in verse 2 to verse 1 to keep the listener interested. Alrighty, so here we are in the Tropical Christmas session in Logic Pro X. Now we're looking at the differences between verse 1 and verse 2 in the arrangement. So let me make this a little bit smaller. Alright, so we can see in verse 1, which is over here, we have the acoustic guitar, and we've got clicks or snaps depending on where you're from. There's a few effects, and we've got the main vocal down here. There's some little extra vocally effect things that come in here and there, but that is it. It is really, really simple. So if we play verse 1.
Let me kiss you 2 times or more. The ships are calling me to the shore, and we're not gonna going where love went before. We've got no sense of knowing the depths of the ocean in store. The depths of the ocean.
And yes, there are some effects happening in the main vocal. You can hear that. Play the main vocal here.
Let me kiss you 2 times or more. The ships are calling me to the shore.
So you can hear there's some panning. You can hear it tailing out there. There's some panning going from left to right. There are all sorts of things happening there to kind of keep you interested. But we're now talking about verse 2 and how we keep the listener interested by adding new things into the mix. So straight away we can see that if this is verse 1 right here in this space, you can see verse 2 is right here, and straight away the added things here, you can see the kick and this analog saw, whatever, I don't know if that's the actual name of the instrument, but this was essentially a sidechain little add-on thing for the background. So essentially we're adding this kick drum and this. Let's play these together. So I really like that sidechain thing. It sort of sounds like the ocean kind of coming, like the waves crashing to me. Just something to add to that vibe, that relaxing sort of sound. So percussion-wise, we've got these, and we've got these finger snaps or clicks, depending on where you're from. Alright, so far that's all we've added is the kick and this instrument here. But I didn't want to stop there, because that's going to keep you interested. It is a change in the percussion element of things, but I wanted to look into the vocals. So if we look at the main vox here on its own, it's the same, just on its own. This is verse 1.
Let me kiss you.
And this is verse 2.
Let me kiss you on the side of the moon.
So on a vocal level, that's not going to keep anyone interested because it's the same as it was last time. How boring. So I looked into it and started making duplicates of the vocal. So here we have the first duplicate. This is, I don't think it should be called vox, it should be called something like wide vox. And this is a wide, so what I did here was, if we look at this plugin called Ensemble, I essentially hit the stereo spread here at 200%. It's messing with the phase, of course, and there's 5 different voices. It sounds a bit like a few aliens singing the song. but it adds an extra layer to the vocal sound. So let's listen to it on its own.
Let me kiss you on the side of the moon. These nights I miss you, but I'll be with you soon as we light up the sands with our hands in the blue. I'll be taking a step through the depths of the ocean with you.
Alright, sounds pretty weird on its own, but if we add it into the main vocal here.
Let me kiss you on the side of the moon. These nights I miss you, but I'll be with you soon as we light up the sands with our hands in the blue. I'll be taking a step through the depths of the ocean with you.
Just makes it that little bit more interesting. But I didn't want to stop there, so I duplicated another track, and this one is a formant shift. So we'll do another episode to talk about what the difference is between pitches and formants, but essentially it makes me sound like a sort of grumpy old man singing the song. So if we listen to that on its own. So yes, it's quieter in the mix, and there is also a lot of delay on there as well to add a bit more into the atmospheric nature of the song. And lastly, we have this one. This one's called panning phase. I think it should be called panning and pitch, because this one is super pitched, very T-Pain style, and it's panning from left to right.
Let me kiss you on the side of the moon. These nights I miss you, but I'll be with you soon as we light up the sands with our hands in the blue. I'll be taking a step through the depths of the ocean with you. The depths of the ocean.
Okay, so those are our... This is our main one, and we've got 3 of these altered, let's say altered vocals, all right? So if we put all the altered vocals together, let's listen to them.
Let me kiss you on the side of the moon. These nights I miss you, but I'll be with you soon as we light up the sands with our hands in the blue. I'll be taking a step through the depths of the ocean with you.
All right, so now we're going to put the main vocal back in, and I'm going to drop out the added vocals, or the added altered vocals, so you can hear the difference that we're making here, the difference we're making to the sound of the vocal performance.
Let me kiss you on the side of the moon. These nights I miss you, but I'll be with you soon as we light up the sands with our hands in the blue. I'll be taking a step through the depths of the ocean with you.
All right, so you see we're kind of adding extra layers in, in delays and in the stereo width here as well. So it's kind of just adding interest, and that's all we are really needing here for the second verse, is to add interest, because we've got new lyrics, it's new material for the listener to be listening to, but we want to keep them interested at the same time. So we're adding a kick, we're adding this, what do I call it, a swooshy effect, sidechain sort of effect, and then we're adding these extra vocal layers as well to keep the listener interested. So it's a technique that you can easily use to build up your song. It's often used in verse 2 will come in with the drums, often in pop songs. You hear it all the time on the radio. Verse 2 comes in and suddenly there's more of a beat or more of a rhythm to the song. But you can also use this technique to build up your choruses. For example, you could have a very empty first chorus into a very sparse first chorus into a more complex second chorus, and then a really full arrangement in the third chorus, to keep your listener interested throughout the song. So once again, let's listen to verse 2 compared to verse 1.
Let me kiss you on the side of the moon. These nights I miss you, but I'll be with you soon as we light up the sands with our hands in the blue. I'll be taking a step through the depths of the ocean with you.
All right, and verse 1.
Let me kiss you 2 times or more. The ships are calling me to the shore, and we're not gonna going where love went before. We've got no sense of knowing the depths of the ocean in store. The depths of the ocean.
And verse 2 one more time.
Let me kiss you on the side of the moon. These nights I miss you, but I'll be with you soon as we light up the sands with our hands in the blue. I'll be taking a step through the depths of the ocean with you.
Alright guys, that's all for today, but there will be one more episode in this series. We're going to be talking about some little recording tips, some cheeky little recording tips for you, some sort of general recording tips, especially for recording that awesome vocal. So check that out in the next video. That's going to be part 4, the 4th and final part. So I look forward to seeing you then. For now, guys, make some awesome music and awesome recordings, write some awesome songs and awesome, I've said awesome too many times. But anyway, my name is Tim from Audio Tutor. Ciao.